my name is Jared Bechdoldt. I'm the authorized channel partner and certified integrator, content and program developer. In short, what I do is I work with our partners to make sure they're qualified and trained to be able to support you in the field for your installation and post-installation support. Today, we're going to take a look at Aperio. What is Aperio? Then we're going to look at system architecture. And then we're going to dive into what we call the communication hubs. And then the communication hub placement. Finally, we're going to look at the deployment process, what you're going to be looking at if you move forward with the Aperio product. And then finally, resources, what we have for you after this training. So what we have here is what we call a traditional access control system. If you look at each one of these dotted blue lines, think of those are wire runs or conduit chases, things like that. So with every access control system, you're going to have a head-end software. And then from there, that's going to be networked through your facility, whether it's one building, a campus, or maybe even a city. From there, narrowing our focus, we're going to have a building, let's say, and we're going to have a control panel in there. And from there, we can narrow down even deeper into a second or third floor where we're going to have a door controller. From there, that's going to control a door. So each door is going to have a card reader right there on the wall. And it's going to typically be a multi-class reader or be able to read any credential that you have at your facility. To secure that door, you're going to have an electric strike that's in the frame of the door, or if they cord the door, they're going to have what's called electrified hardware, where wires are actually running through the door and the lock is powered. Then at the top, you're going to see the REX, or the request to exit. What that does is when you leave the inside of a door, it shunts the alarm so it doesn't alert the access control system that somebody's trying to break in. And then finally, you have your DPS, or your door position switch. That lets the access control system know if the door is closed or not. So now taking a look at Aperio, you're still going to have your access control system that's networked. You're still going to have your control panel and your controller, but now you see up there what we call a hub, or a communication hub for short. So that's going to be tied to your door controller, and it's going to be sitting on the wall or the ceiling of a hallway, let's say. From there, it wirelessly communicates to your door lock using 802.15.4. So to be clear, this is not Wi-Fi. This is a separate technology closer to Zigbee. And we're going to get into the advantage of that moving forward. So the benefit to this system is now the huge cost for a retrofit application specifically is wiring. So if you have existing an existing building that might have cinder block walls or concrete frames, or maybe there's asbestos, or maybe you just don't have the time because it's a main hallway, or maybe this is a hospital facility, to be able to spend all that time with all the walls ripped open. Aperio is a great application because you just have to have access to mount it on the ceiling, and then there's no wires moving forward. So ASSA ABLOY is a hardware manufacturer, and here's a list of some of the access control partners that have integrations with us. And what I mean by integrations, we're going to dive into this a little deeper, but we have several different platforms of communication hubs, or hubs for short, that will allow for different number of locking devices to be attached to those. So don't worry if you don't see your access control platform. We do have an option for that. And there might be something that's in the works. So please don't be shy. Feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to have a conversation in depth about your specific access control. So speaking to our partners, there's 3 partners I want to highlight here. First off is our access control partners. These are the people I just spoke about. So they're the ones that are certified to be able to sell our products. Who they sell to is our certified integrators. So these are currently the companies that might be doing your access control system now. So installing electric strikes or hardware, or anybody that's managing your system. They also might be installing your fire alarms or burglar alarms, or maybe even pulling your Cat6 data cables. And then finally, our preferred installers. These are certified locksmiths that have been went through a training to be able to install our products for us. So these are our partners we work with in the field. So be clear, if somebody tells you they're certified with ASSA ABLOY, they've gone through numerous hours of training and been given the tools to properly assist in anything you might have. Pre-sale to installation to support after that installation. So let's take a little bit of time and speak to the communication hubs, or hubs for short. So the first one we have is what's called a Wigan Hub. So you'll see up there, it's 1-to-1, meaning one hub to one locking device. It's wired in traditional Wigan wiring. I have a little image there of a wiring block, as we like to call it, as well as it has an advanced wiring block. So our products have many alarms that you're used to having with a hardwired access control system. So depending on that specific product, it will be able to do your request to exits, your low battery, your tamper switches that you're used to using. The benefit to the Wigan Hub is it uses traditional Wigan wiring. So you wire this up just like you've traditionally been doing in your facility for years prior. And you heard me mention that if you didn't see your access control system on that list, we had an offering for you. Well, here it is. This Wigan Hub will tie into almost any access control system that uses traditional Wigan wiring. As an added benefit, we make many prepared kits that we're going to get into here in a little bit, but the benefit to that is the hub is already prepared, so it's mated to that locking device. So all you have to do is wire the hub up, install the lock, and you can go right into your access control system and program that door or cabinet or server lock right into your access control system. The second hub we have is what's called the RS485, and it's a 1-to-16. So one hub per 16 locking devices. So as you can see in the picture there, if this is in a hallway, for instance, it might be catching 4 doors, and then additionally, it might be catching cabinet locks, server cabinet locks, wireless router or wireless readers. It's really up to you. The only thing that's dependent is the total, so up to 16, and that can be mix and match, whatever works for you. The benefit to RS485 is the ability to create a bus, or a daisy chain, as they say. So if you look at this image, you have your access control panel. Let's pretend this is at the end of a hallway. So you run your cabling to your first hub, and then later down the road, you decide to add another hub down the hallway. You can just run your cabling and attach it to the existing hub and run it down around the hallway. You don't have to do individual runs. So when it comes to an installation and leveraging your infrastructure, you can, for a lot less man hours, you can already set the groundwork to be able to add additional locks in the future. So when it comes to how many hubs are available, that's dependent on your access control software. So that would involve having us come out on site, possibly even having your access control system vendor there, and we'd be able to go through the process and we could lay out your options for you. And then our third hub offering is our IP hub, which you can see can do 1-to-64. So this utilizes a Cat6 cable or a Cat5e or better. So what this does is now it gives you the offering to be able to do up to 64 devices. So you wonder where this might be useful. So we're starting to see a huge incline in electronic cabinet locks. So for instance, if you have a mail room, or if you have an employee locker room or things like that, you're able to actually use access control now to monitor those doors rather than just using a mechanical lock. All these hubs can be used on the same system if it has integration. So if your access control system has integration for the RS-45 and the IP hub, you could use any variants that works for you. So now we're going to dive into the communication hub placement. This is the most important thing when it comes to the Aperio technology. So first, we're going to look at the patterns, how the RF signal goes out from the hubs. Then we're going to look at building construction. We're going to look at metal barriers. And then we're going to look at lock placement in comparison to that hub. We're going to look at lock density and then ceiling height. So there's variances in your ceilings. You might be in a warehouse situation, or you might have a drop ceiling. And then we're going to look at the typical installation, which would be a hallway. And then we're going to look into other RF transmitters that might give you challenges in the field. So the idea here is we're going to go through, and if you were to do a survey, you would have an idea and you can map out exactly where you would need hubs so you can future-proof your system. So an Imperial hub typically goes on the wall, and you're going to see the shape, what looks like a football coming out the front, and it goes 50 feet. And then behind it, it has, let's go with a basketball. So you have some coverage behind, but majority of your coverage is going to go out forward 50 feet in the shape of a football. We also have an optional antenna. These are not included in the box. This is an additional purchase, but this gives you the ability to install this antenna, and you can place it in the center of a room so you could catch all surrounding doors. So between these two variances, this will cover all of your needs. We get asked quite a bit why we don't place the antenna in the box, and it's for a situation like this. If you were to install this antenna and not be clear on what the pattern would be, if you're trying to reach the doors across the room, you might have challenges with that because the antenna is installed. And now it's a donut shape instead of the football shape. When it comes to surroundings, you can see we have a lock on the door here. We have what's called the IN100 lock. If you look at your hub placements, it's universal really where you can put these. It really just depends on that unique hub and what's surrounding it. So we have several rules that we try to follow. One being any kind of metal framing or trusses, rafters, things like that. Try to keep it 8 inches away from that building material, just to give the signal enough strength to be able to shoot out. Typically we see 50 feet is pretty standard through 2 normally constructed walls. So we will have variances. If it's an open line of sight, you may be able to gain a greater distance. But at the same time, which we're going to look at too, if it's an RF dense area, you might get a shorter distance. So more hubs might be required for that specific area. But really what the goal is to remember there's nothing set in stone. It's whatever works specifically for your facility. We're going to go through a few scenarios now of hub placement. So again, we have the doors here, and each one of them have a lock on it. And this is a hallway that's 50 feet long. So in this situation, having the hub at the end of the hallway, and in the bottom left, you can see the football shape, that's going to cover all of those doors. But it's not set in stone. If you already have an existing hub that's in a room, you can add that antenna and it can still cover those doors. Because when you have that donut shape, it's going to go out 25 feet in either direction. So again, be able to cover that 50-foot span. Moving into a long hallway, like I mentioned before, with the RS-485, you have the ability to daisy chain or link those hubs together. So in this case, we have a 100-foot hallway. Let's say you initially put the hub that's marked in blue, you install that, and that's running these 5 doors. Maybe 6 months later, a year later, you decide to add these additional doors. All you would need to do is tie into the existing hub, run your new hub placement, and install those doors. And now you have access control for that whole hallway, and you only had to run 1 cable for that installation. When it comes to ceiling height, we typically try to keep the hub 16 feet above the lock if it's going on a wall installation. This gives the bottom of the RF signal plenty of space to be able to cover that installation. If you do have a taller situation, let's say it's a warehouse, we do have the ability to place that on the ceiling. So think of turning that football on ends like you're getting ready to kick a field goal. So that's going to shoot down. So with a situation like this, you might have to use multiple hubs to cover that room, but that's where a survey would come in handy because you would be able to find out, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. Additionally, for those drop ceilings or those low ceilings, what we found is by using the antenna, you're able to create that donut effect, and that will be able to cover all those doors. The challenge with that is you might not have enough room to be able to mount it above a door or in a hallway. So we found that mounting it in the center of a room with an antenna gives the best results. So moving out of a easy installation and moving in to something a little more challenging, here's where we get into being able to be flexible in the installation process. So what we have here is a square room with a fishbowl, if you want to call it, on the inner part. So in this installation, again, you can daisy chain those hubs, and you can have one in the corner of one hallway covering half the locks, and then on the other hallway, have a secondary hub covering those locks. And so we're pretending these are doors possibly going into offices and things like that. So being that these hubs can hold 8, 16, 64 locks, not only can you encompass these doors, but inside of each one of these offices, if you install Aperio cabinet locks, or if this is an IT closet, you could put a server cabinet in there, or an electric strike. We have a family of products, not only just your typical mortise lock, cylindrical lock, or exit device, but we have those extra add-ons for that higher level of security that people are looking for documents and things like that. So here's another option. You could put this hub in the center of the room, again, utilizing that antenna, and encompass all those doors with just one hub. And again, finally, speaking to an open room. So we have this situation where, again, you can use one in the center. And the beauty about the Aperio products is there's no form factor, or I'm sorry about that. There's no assigned manner of doing it. by doing surveys, you're going to find out what works best for your specific application in that specific door or hallway. So now that we've talked about hub placement, let's talk about some of the challenges we might run into when it comes to RF signals. So what we're seeing now is we're seeing cell phone repeaters, wireless networks or WAPs, telecom systems. We're starting to see many things running off RF signals. So some of these might look familiar as you're walking through your facility. If not, here's a list. So we have paging systems, security radios, cell phone repeaters, like I said there. So really the key is what do these signals look like? So that's where working with your IT department is key. So they're going to know where all the wireless applications are set up, and by working with your certified integrator, or you can do it yourself by downloading an app. There's many apps you can choose from for Wi-Fi channel analyzers. So if you download this app, you're going to get an idea of what your signals look like in your facility. So like I mentioned before, Aperio is not Wi-Fi. So that gives us the ability to change channels. So if you look here, it's pretty dense between channels 9 through 13. So if you were to go to a higher channel in this particular hub, this might be for one hallway, you can switch the channels on the hub through the software to maximize that frequency. If you go down 50 feet to the next hub and channels 9 through 13 are wide open, then you can adjust that specific hub to this. So each hub you can maximize for that particular setting, for that 50-foot range. So with that being said, in addition to all the wireless signals, we have microwaves, we have motors, all these things. Really the key is when you do this installation, if you give yourself 6 feet of extra cabling, you'll have more than enough space to be able to move around and find that perfect match for that specific installation. So best practices. When it comes to the RF pattern, out of the box, the standard shape is a football shape that goes out 50 feet from the face of the hub. If you utilize the existing antenna, it gives us what's the donut shape, which is 25 feet in a perpendicular. And then the placement, which is key for the Aperio technology. When it comes to the hub-to-hub or placement, if you're doing a grouping of hubs, again, just like the truss and anything metal, try to keep those at least 8 inches apart. And then when it comes to the hub to lock separation, again, try to keep that 8 inches apart. And on a typical wall installation, you want to go no higher than 16 feet above the lock. Like we discussed, if you need to go in a higher because it's a warehouse or something like that, you can absolutely mount that on the ceiling, but it may require additional hubs. And then for ceiling installations, hubs need to be installed below the ceiling. Otherwise, any kind of plenum space needs to be in a housing. So what is plenum? Plenum is the open space above or below the floor that's used for air circulation. Any cabling or housing in that space needs to be plenum rated. So in addition to the things in the ceiling, we can change those. Things we can't change are HVAC units, electrical panels and closets, elevators, and window tinting. People might not think about window tinning, but it actually has little metal particles that help keep the heat out, but in some instances might affect the RF signal in a building. Elevators, when you're doing your survey, make sure to conduct that survey with your elevator on the floor you're on and above and below. Depending on the elevator, there might be some kind of sensor on that, and so you want to make sure you cover all your bases. Nothing would be worse than testing it with the elevator 3 floors away, but when it's on your floor, it's giving you some signal interference. So when it comes to testing, there's a great little kit you can build. So what you're looking at here is a Wt2 tester. This is one of our testers that we use for some of our electrified products. And really what this is this is just wired up to be able to power an Imperial Hub. So you see there the Imperial Hub. I would recommend, in addition to that hub, you can get an antenna so that if there are spots where you plan on putting this in the center of a room and utilizing that donut shape, you can test for that. And then you see our R100, our wireless reader. So this is what it is. It's strictly a wireless reader. So the ability for this is one unit that you can just keep in your hand or in a bag or put in a Pelican case or something like this. And it's really easy to move around the facility without lugging a bunch of equipment. So I'll leave this slide up for a second if you want to take a picture, but there's 2 options you can do. So I mentioned before that we make factory prepared kits. You can get the Imperial Hub and R100 Reader prepared. So all you have to do is power it and you can go through and test your facility. If you already have or you're looking to get universal products, I have those listed here as well, but they both would do the same thing. I'll also leave this up for you for a second, but this is the wiring diagram. So you'd be able to wire so you could power up your Aperio hub so you could do that testing. And then finally, we have the procedure. So the idea behind this is you would have your Wt2 tester wired with a cable. So I would suggest 5 to 10 feet if that's accessible. And then with the Wt2 tester, you can either use an extension cord and power it from an outlet, or you can get a battery bank and you can power it so you could zip tie it to the unit. So it really is a flexible unit and you can move that anywhere in the space. So just like the Aperio technology, if you were to take your credential from your facility and walk down the hallway with your hub, with somebody holding the hub against the wall where you would like it to be, you can walk down that hallway, even walk into a room, present that credential to the R100 reader. If you can see there, the top of it's lit up green. It's going to light up green saying that it's a confirmed read. And then if you get that same image on the hub with that green light, you know that your signal is good and strong. And then from there, you can make appropriate adjustments. One other thing I suggest that's not needed, but a digital tape measure. This will save you from having to pull a tape measure all through your hallways. At this point, once you find the max distance, you just point and shoot the wall and it'll give you that distance and you can write it down so that as you're going through doing your survey and figuring out what the scope of this project's going to look like, you'll be able to do it much easier. So now diving into the deployment process. So you're going to see some products here. So we have the K100. This is a cabinet lock. The beauty of this product is As it's vertical here, it can go on a cabinet door. But if you're looking to put it on a drawer, for instance, you just turn it sideways and it also can be used as a drawer. So now you can secure those HR documents or a locker, a mailbox, small items like that. Second, we have the KS100. This is a server cabinet lock. Many times you go into an IT closet, and more now that multiple companies and multiple departments are using the same server rack, you want to make sure that people are only focused on where they should go. So you install this on a server, and now this gives you access control, not only when you walk into the IT room, but each specific server gives you now access control. In addition, most server cabinets have pop-out panels on the side or back. This actually has sensors that you can order that'll go on those. So if somebody tries to pop one off, you'll actually get a tamper alarm as well. We have the G100 glass lock. So this is for those fishbowl rooms where they're trying to go for an aesthetic look. So this requires no drilling. So it's a compression fit. And it actually has a keypad on there, almost like a smartphone. So you could choose to do dual validation, something you know, something you have, or you can pick and choose whether you use a credential or the keypad. The A100 is for aluminum storefront doors. So if you've ever gone into a gas station and you see those doors and it's extremely narrow for the material to be able to put a lock on there. This was made to fit perfectly on there. So now you have those applications for those aluminum storefront doors to be able to secure those with access control. We spoke about the R100 Reader. This has many uses. Not only can it go on a glass door for being able to badge in, things like that, but it's also being used now in this hands-free world of being able to take attendance or roll or just validate where people are going for tracking purposes. And then finally, our newest product is the ES100. It's an electrified strike, our 1500, HES 1500 and 1600, utilizing that same R100. So what's the big thing about this is it's an electric strike that's battery powered. So no longer do you have to run wiring down through there. So again, it's leveraging that Aperio platform. So we don't have just one lock. We have a family of products to be able to utilize all those open spots on those Imperial hubs. So all the products you see here come in a prepared kit. So that's going to have that Wigan, so that one lock paired to that one hub already done in the box for you. So the beauty about this is no matter who you are, you can buy this product right now. You don't have to go through that certification process that I spoke to before. And again, even if you didn't see your access control platform on that list that I showed before, if it uses traditional Wigan wiring, you'd be able to use these products. One note that I want to mention is with the prepared kits, depending on the product, there are some limitations for the features. And then adding into our field configurable components. So these are going to be for when you're doing a large installation. This is going to require working with one of our certified integrator partners. So they're going to come in, they're going to evaluate your access control system, let you know the options, and then be able to do that survey for you. And all these locks would be able to go into that same system. So adding on from the list before, we have the IN100. So this is our grade 1 lock set. It comes in cylindrical, mortise, exit device. And the beauty of this is taking all those components that are in a traditional access control system and putting it all into one unit running on 6 AA batteries. And then additionally, we have the PR100. If you're looking for a dual validation lock set, again, something you have, something you know, this would be the offering for you. And then again, looking down at the different components for the hubs. Aesthetically, they look the exact same. The only difference is how they're wired on the backside. So we have the AH20, as we call it, which is our Wigan, our AH30, which is our RS45, and then our AH40, which is our IP hub. So moving from these components, for a typical installation using Aperio, you're going to use some form of an RS45 or an IP hub. So this again would require using one of our certified integrator partners. So how it would look is you would get your locks, those would get installed. You would install your hubs where they need to go. And then your certified integrator would need these 4 components to get your system up and running. One would be the programming software. And this software is the workhorse to be able to do all your configurations for your hub and your lock. Your radio dongle is what they would plug into their laptop when they're out on that facility. And that's the communication bridge between that hub and that locking device. The encryption key is an XML key that's specific for your site so that nobody else can come in and make any changes without your authorization. And then finally, they're going to need a credential. So whatever credential they're using on your facility, they're going to use that credential. So how it would work is once the locks and the hubs are installed, they pull up their software and they pull up a hub in a hallway. And then the doors that need to communicate to that hub, they just mate them through the software. And now it's ready to go into your access control system. It's an extremely simple process. And with the added benefit of if you find out right away that you're having frequency issues, or maybe you install a new piece of equipment 96 months down the road, this gives you the ability to simply go into the system, run a test, and switch those channels to maximize the frequency. And then finally, resources. So we have here just a simple checklist of our technologies that we offer. So when you're going through making your decision on trying to future-proof your system moving forward, here's some basic questions that are written out here that'll help you kind of make that direction to start the conversation. And each one of our manufacturers have their own website, but if you're specifically looking to just talk about access control, you can go to intelligentopenings.com, and that's going to have information on all of our certified products, which is Aperio, which is the technology we just spoke about. We have our IP solutions, which is Wi-Fi, true Wi-Fi. We have Power over Ethernet, or PoE. And then we have our integrated wired products, which think of those as traditional Wigan wiring, like you've always done in a facility, but it's all in an integrated lock set. So it's all built into the door itself. And then finally, one thing I want to talk about is the Eac Configurator. So when it comes to creating a part number, it can be pretty challenging if you look at right there where it says the ordering string. So this helps you walk through to get a baseline. So when it asks you for a finish, what finish do you want? It's actually going to show you a finish. Or if it's going to speak to lever design, it'll actually show you the levers that you can pick from. Because MJ or ME or MJ, that might not mean anything to you. And we totally get that. So the idea behind here is, again, to kind of streamline that process for you. And once you go through, if you choose to, you can download this. And if you reach out to a local representative from ASSA ABLOY, you could hand them this and say, hey, this is what we're kind of thinking. Or you could even email it to your architect you're already working with. And then finally, the customer support app. So everything I just showed you can be found in one app that can be downloaded from Google or the App Store, depending on the phone you have. It's free. I would highly recommend it. The beauty of this is being that ASSA ABLOY has so many brands, this is a one-stop shop for reaching out to us for customer service, technical support, resource center. It has many installation videos, and we're actively looking to build that video, resource library even more with installation videos and tech tips and things like that. This is one of many trainings that goes on a daily basis. So again, please come back to ASSA ABLOY Academy and look for any additional classes we might have.
With that, we'd like to thank everyone for your participation today. Please reach out to Jared if you have any specific questions that we haven't covered here, and the questions that we will follow up back with you on the ones that we didn't answer today. Thank you.
Thank you.